Hello, this is Paloma. I come back with the story the sky is telling for the next few days. Thank you, family, for this space of sharing. And thank you for your comments and for your support to this service and to this story. This is the week in the moon cycle that tends to have more momentum, more action, more activity. We are invited to actually answer for our prayers, for the intent that we were sitting in the new moon, and to also notice how our energy is expressing itself, if we are actually giving direction to it, to our movement through a wheel of our own, or if we are only being, going through life in an inertia of reactivity. I have a membership in Spanish, and I held today a word circle. Maybe that's how you say it in English. And it's always interesting because through this weaving of our words and sharing, we can have a lot of insights and even epiphanies onto ourselves and what is going on collectively as well as individually, through translating it with astrology as a tool of awareness and healing. So there were obviously the conversation around Mars and Pluto, and how some of us have seen clearly the triggers and the moments where we are invited to actually pivot our perspective, and the treasure it is, because then we actually retrieve agency, such agency in our own lives, that we awaken to a creative power that changes our experiences. And there was also the subject of the family and how we've been going back into the memory and some wounds, so we can maybe resignify and just find new places for all of these experiences inside our own psyche. And the grief, that comes along rites of passage, and we are definitely in a rite of passage. The uncertainty, at the same time, the trust, the hope we can all access, the bravery, the courage to hear the voice of our intuition when we can't really see what's forward, and from there opening up the possibility of a new destiny. To bring some of the subjects that we were sharing today in the circle. And as I said, I bring this because this brings great insights, and the week ahead is a moment of glimmers of clarity, transparency, epiphanies, insights, and great awakening. Let's start with the beginning. So on the 11/11, which is a portal day about truth and illumination, we have Venus entering Capricorn. This is the school of structures. She's going to be ruling the full moon in Taurus at the end of the week from this place. And Venus here is a lot more selective in terms of how she chooses to administrate her resources, energy, time, and of course who she chooses to share this with. She's a Venus that truly appreciates maturity, commitment, gives a very important place in her life to loyalty, and expresses love in a much more practical way. This is a Venus that is cultivating self-authority and self-respect. And if we add this to the factor that Saturn is starting his direct motion this week as well, we are talking about being efficient with our energy, with our movements, about harvests that come or sprung from the responsibility that we have committed ourselves with, towards creating the foundation through our diligence for our dreams to become. Saturn is like that, He actually delivers like a reward if we do the work, and we are in a moment where we can actually start seeing some of these rewards. It's a very interesting week because we have a very strong Saturnian energy, and at the same time we have an extremely powerful influence of Urano. And they are very different energies. They actually create a very big contrast. One is the boundary, the limit, the responsibility. The other one is freedom, revolution, change. Yet, if we find a way for these energies to become an alliance, to collaborate inside of ourselves, this could reach something like a revolutionary change that is managed through maturity, and it is held. It can be held through time, if we choose to commit to the work for this to be. I don't know if that made sense in English. I hope so. So I think the subject is we need to understand freedom as an expression of our responsibility, our becoming grown-ups. Our becoming the authorities in our own lives. So I hear sovereignty really in both of these planets, just from different functions really. And then on Tuesday the 12th, we have Mercury doing a trine precisely with Saturn. I am bringing this up because Mercury is already in the pre-shadow of the retrograde he's going to have this month. This means he's going to go through this again. And to me, it's like we need to be aware and willing that we are going to go through again some agreements, some contracts, some arrangements, so we can maybe rearrange and reestablish boundaries, to go for more clarity, to attend to detail, to be available for a change of mind, a change of perspective, to become truly responsible for our words, for our commitments, for our visions. And I think actually above all of this, also, there is the strengthening our trust in the wisdom of our intuition as a legitimate voice that guides us in our lives. Okay, having said this, full moon in Taurus on the 15th of November on the 24th degree. This is a full moon conjunct Urano. So I was going to say, if you have planets between 20 to 29th degree of the fixed signs, but actually if you have planets in the fixed signs or the cardinal signs or the mutable ones, because there's an activation for everybody in this sky. So aside from the fascinating intervention of Urano, which is very electrifying and stimulating energy, I want to say this. Do you remember I've spoken of this? We call it this, in Spanish it is called the small great trine of talents. So this is a trine in the sky that is implying the gods of change, Neptune, Urano, and Pluto. This is actually catalyzing this radical change in the experience of reality. This will be sustained for several years, and right now they are all at the end degrees of the signs they are in. No, so we're talking Pisces, Capricorn, and Tauro. Well, this full moon, gets there into this trine of the transpersonal planets, and she's implicated now in the configuration, and so is the sun. So this makes this energy, this telluric movement, this spiritual transformation of reality this goes into the most intimate personal space in our lives, which is the moon. This is our inner life. And then the sun, which is our consciousness, our energy, our sense of self. So aside from this being a supermoon, which is, she's actually the closest to the earth, it's a supermoon in the immensity of the illumination of truth and change that it brings. Because Uranus is the awakening. No, it is truth and consciousness. Pluto is just a few days to at the end of Capricorn into the Aquarian energy. So this is really bringing a lot of truth into the light. Every full moon is a moment of awareness, of an emotional moment of illumination. And then we have Saturn starting his direct emotion, that it's also a moment of reality check that requires all this honesty. Do you see how much energy about truth? And yet there's going to be so much information that we might be a little doubtful about where is the truth. And the mastery is that we are the masters and the authority. We usually can't really predict what's going to happen when there's such an Uranian energy, because that's the idea. He's the surprise. But we can see clearly this is a moment of change and illumination and opening, that it's opening for you perhaps in this scenario in your life where you have the 24th degree of Tauro in your chart. But it's also, in a general sense, just asking us what is valuable to you, what is important, what is sacred in your life. This is one step more towards change, and we've been in this change dynamic for a very long time right now, because Urano is evolution, and evolution happens through experience. We have to get our body moving into the experiences so we can actually become that change. And Tauro, this is a sign of stability, so there is some attachment, some resistance, some preferring to stay in the comfort zone sometimes in the energy of Tauro. And Urano is precisely the one who breaks with patterns and asks you out of your comfort zone so you can enter the next level of experience. Now we are at the moment of rising into a new spiral towards becoming freer, and this implies the discomfort of the transition. And that's where we are. Tauro is going to express itself a lot in our body, so I would invite you to check in with your body in terms of the rhythm, a sustainable rhythm in which you can navigate change. So sustainability is also a subject of Tauro. And it looks like a mobilizing moment that will probably touch precisely the places where we are a bit more rigid or possessive, but this is it. It creates the opportunity of a transformation, a final transformation through the dialogue to Pluto, saying goodbye to all structures and patterns, through the dissolution of some old dream or disillusionment through an old dream that goes back into source so we can dream reality back into reality through Neptune. And it allows this revolutionary energy that invites us to become the change itself. From such a radical acceptance of what is in the now that we can enter the point of creation, which is always the present time and neutrality. Okay, with such tremendous force and energies, we ought to be available, curious, excited with the possibility, collaborating with the energy. Resistance brings about pain. So I think this energy is inviting us to open our hands, but it's not only for letting go, it's also for receiving. We need to have open hands if we want to receive. And the mastery of receiving, it's also a mastery of Tauro. Let us not forget, full moons are harvests. Saturn stationing direct is a harvest. We are at the end of this 16-year process with Pluto in Capricorn, where we can actually harvest a new power, a redefined idea of success and goals in our lives. I would ask you, what really matters to you right now? And if you are not choosing that, what are you waiting for? Because this is it. So the ruler of Tauro is Venus, as I said. She's in Capricorn at this moment. So this is like, look at this. It's a very Uranian weekend energy, yet very like, rebellious in a way. And there's so much earth in the sky at the same time. And look, earth is the hardest element to change because it's much more dense. So this is why this is a blessing, to have an opportunity to change what sometimes feels is very difficult to change because of its density. And this is held and accompanied by a very stabilizing energy, even within the context of surprises. Venus is holding a square to the nodes of destiny, and that's just as it sounds. Now there is a tension that reveals our resistance and attachment to the past, and then there is this calling, like a magnetic call into our destiny through the North Node, so we can be brave and open ourselves to new paths. This is a cardinal tension, so it's calling us into moving with initiative. And another interesting aspect of this sky is we're going to see Mercury in front opposite Jupiter. Mercury in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Gemini. So they're in what we call mutual reception. So they're like taking care of each other's houses. And this is a fluid conversation from them. And remember, because Mercury is already in his shadow, this is going to happen for 3 times. So I think it's speaking of a moment where we are going to be able to play with these both energies, have a lot of analysis capacity into a synthesis of information. It's, as I said, a lot of ideas, perspectives, epiphanies, exchanges, visions. These will all have to go through the filter of Mercury retrograde and Saturn saying, that's a good idea, that cannot be brought down into reality. No, so we're gonna feel this from a tension, but it's a very practical and actually blessed tension that allows to have this filter for all of this very almost overwhelming flow of mental energy. Right, so I see the potential for intuition, spiritual and psychic access to multidimensional information with this tension of something that wants to expand and a questioning of whether or not this can be implemented in a practical way in our lives. That's Saturn. And there's just this very big update in terms of what's the purpose, what's the priority, what is truly significative or transcendental in our lives right now. And we will evaluate this with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Okay, a lot of information. I think the key is to discern and to also be very selective about how we nurture ourselves with information and what we bring into the world through our information and communication, so that we don't collaborate with the confusion and the distraction. This is a world that is aiming to distract us, and there is extremely creative potential available. That's it. Potential, opportunity for change, filled with creativity and held by such strong, major and powerful forces that are holding humanity at the threshold of our evolution. That's what I see, that's what I hear. So I think that's what I have, family, for this time. May we have how would I say this in English? May we have an awoken dream of revolution. Blessings.